All right. All right. All right. All right. All right. How are you doing, everybody, on this 23rd day of July, 2026? My name is Luke Thomas. This is episode Omaha Styley 311 of my live chat. Thank you for being here. On the docket today, well, we got some. I don't know what you want to say about the UFC show this weekend. I'm surprised it's in Abu Dhabi, given that Kuwait and Jordan and Bahrain are currently being missiled into ruin. Perhaps the Emirates have cut a deal with the Iranians to not have their places destroyed any further. I suspect that's what's going on. But in any case, that is taking place. And then we have PFL here in DC actually this weekend, which is interesting. They're going to be at the Care First Arena down in Southeast. That's where the Mystics play. It's cool. It's actually the perfect arena for them. Anyway, even if they wanted to go to the Capital One Arena, it's under renovation. And then whatever else is on your mind? A bunch of boxing news. Yeah, I mean, you name it. There's a lot going on. So thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. Sort of fun note here, if I may. I sat down for like an hour or maybe more today with Dan Hardy. He invited me over to do, I think it's like an extra rounds thing he does for PFL. I will tell you what, how do I say this? We ended up talking about things related to my life that was surprisingly candid. I don't say that as a bad thing, but it was definitely not a thing that I went in expecting necessarily. But shouts to Dan, he's a legend. Anyway, that should be out. I was told it was recorded this morning at 11 a.m. I was told that would be out within like 24 hours. So I guess by noon tomorrow or something. So be on the lookout for that. And yeah. All right. So the way this works is I put up a thread on youtube.com/Luke Thomas in the post section. You guys fill it up. You vote to the top what you like. I answer those questions for about an hour, and then we do the paid portion. 2 ways to contribute. One, you can become a member, and you can just ask questions by virtue of being a member. Or you can put a donation into the super chat, and that is a great way to support the channel. But if you just want to hang out and you just want to watch too, I'm just glad you're here. Okay? All right. So without further ado, let's get this party started, shall we? All right. All right. It's when I had to meet Dan, or I was supposed to be there like 10:45. I didn't get there till like 10:50, like 2 or 3. So I was a little bit late. But like I just want to point out at that point in time of the day, it was 75 degrees here in DC. 75. In all my years being here, I don't know if I've ever seen 75 at 11 a.m. in July. That is insane. I'm not particularly sure what the meteorological explanation is, but suffice to say, highly unusual, and I suspect fleeting, and will not last, and will return to the heat that is more customary this time of year, which is, Thailand jungle hot and steamy as well. Okay, where are my glasses? I angered losers and morons online, which, is not a thing that I'm unaccustomed to doing, because I said Mortal Kombat 2, the movie, and The Mandalorian were the guys who made it should be tried at The Hague, and that there was torture to sit through them. Naturally, this upset a sort of like low level, just sort of like a donk that doesn't understand how utterly ordinary they are and how banal their interests are. In any event, they went after me, and I just want to be very, very clear about this. If you like those movies, even under grading it like on a curve, like, oh, it's just slop, like I recognize it's bad. I'm saying they're so bad that even grading it on that terms, anything other than you just realizing that they're not worth it and they're failures and they're unjustifiably, they're crimes against art, basically. Anything short of that means you're a fucking dullard. I just want to be super clear about that, okay? I know that sounds harsh and perhaps lacking in nuance, but I am forced into these positions by virtue of what the art makers are deciding to do with their time. Those movies are fucking terrible. Grogu or the Mandalorian one, I skipped it in theaters because I saw it didn't get like super awesome reviews. And I was like, all right, I'll watch it at home here. You know, how bad could it be? Motherfucker, so bad. So, so bad. But it was better than Mortal Kombat 2, which I couldn't finish. And someone was asking me, like, why did you try to finish it multiple times? Like, who does that? It's like, well, I paid for it. You know what I mean? I wanted to like get the money out of the money I paid, but like, or the value out of the money I paid. But like, oh my God, that movie is unwatchable. It's like they're both of them are barely even movies. I mean, they're not really stories being told. They're not characters being developed. There's no idea being shared there. They're just, especially on the Mandalorian side, it's just a vehicle for fan service. I mean, MK2, I suppose, there's just a lot of that with like dialogues, like you know, scaffolding around what is basically like, how do we do fan service, and then like what tests well with audiences who have spent a lot of time doing Magic the Gathering. Like, how do we make, you know, hay with them? And that is it. I could not fucking believe how bad they were. I could not believe how bad they were. And Mandalorian at the end too. Like, oh my god, that movie is so fucking unbelievably terrible. I can't believe it. I rewatched with my daughter. I rewatched Revenge of the Sith. That movie also has a lot of problems, but generally, I think it's fine. It's fine. You know, it's fine. But motherfucking Mandalorian. Someone asked me what's worse, The Rise of Skywalker or Mandalorian, and the answer is Rise of Skywalker. But in certain ways, the Mandalorian movie is worse. I mean, what they do with the Hutts, both in terms of characters, as well as like on-screen physical appearance, as well as character arc, as well as, you know, how they fit into the larger unit. I mean, like every part of it was corrupted and destroyed. I was like, how the fuck did this movie get greenlit? Man, so bad. But I am seeing Princess Mononoke in theaters coming up here soon. And what else am I seeing? Oh, I got Big Trouble in Little China, 40th anniversary. Gonna go see that. I was trying to see The Odyssey. I haven't made time for it yet. Everyone says Obsession is also good. I haven't made time for that one yet. I need to. I made time for two bullshit ass movies. I got to make some time for some good ones. Hopefully, I've never seen Princess Mononoke in Japanese with English subtitles, so I'm going to do that one in theater. So that one should be good. All right, y'all don't give a fuck about this. I know. All right, let's see what we got. Sorry, I just had to share because I was like, dude, what are they just feeding us these days? Like, how is this okay? All right, let's see. And I want to like The Mandalorian. You know, I like the first season of the show, but god damn, they have wrong one. I think, yeah, this way. Okay, yeah. Thoughts on seemingly the whole world turning on Argentina during this World Cup? Boy, did they ever. Messi went from 2022, where people were like really happy to see him win the World Cup and to see Argentina win the World Cup under his direction. And then by the time the final came around, everyone was, or at least large portions of people were hoping that they would lose. And it was weird too, because it's like, how do you root for Spain? You know, the country of the fucking Inquisition. Like, how do you do that? You know, a colonial empire. But the reality is, by the end of the game, you could just tell like which team was better. Spain was better by a million miles. Like, just on a rightful, like, who was better today, you had to cheer for them, and they played better from the word go. And you know, their players weren't as aggressively fouling. I mean, it's kind of funny, right? Because, dude, like, it's so weird, man. Latin America has a love-hate relationship with Argentina. It's very, very, it's hard to explain. Someone asked me, is Argentina the England of South America? And I don't think that's right. Because, yeah, like, you know, English tourists travel, they're loud and people hate them. American tourists too. And Argentines do. When you see them out in like other countries, like, it's very noticeable. They're loud. They're fucking rude. You know what I mean? And I realize I'm generalizing here. Obviously, there are many that are not this way, to be very clear. But like, it's not hard to not notice them. But the difference is, like, dude, they're culturally very ascendant. Their sports heroes matter to other countries. Their sports leagues matter to other countries. Their music is massively influential over the course of that that entire continent. Their food is treated with reverence in other parts of the continent. Like, it's very, very strange how on the one hand, like, they love what Argentina does and represents. On the other hand, they just can't stand the people. It's very, very, it's a very interesting dynamic. Whereas, no one's ever going to accuse, like, oh, the English importation of their food is a thing that people covet. No, they don't. No one wants, a fucking, whatever, a potato jacket where they put like rock salt and banana peels on top of a fucking baked potato. And then everyone's like, oh, it's delicious. I'm like, if you've been in prison or you eat like a billy goat. But Argentina's not like that. Like, they're, the whole gaucho thing, and then with meats and what's their pizza called? Fugazeta or something like that. Or Fuzigeta. I forget the name of it, but something like that. And, obviously chimichurri and the whole steaks and things like that. Like, that's not what England does. It's not exactly right. In any case, dude, they just revealed themselves. They've played like fucking dirtbags that whole game, right? Did you see that 2-on-1 they had on what's his face? The kid, my brain is not working. And then went, like, he had 2-on-1, right? So I basically had like a Russian on him, and then used that to get airborne and drive his cleats, essentially his spikes, into the back of his leg. And I was like, dude, what the fuck? I mean, they're playing like absolute fucking jerk-offs, but even before that, they had mastered some big comebacks. But I don't know, their style of play, their style of how they had obviously the baggage that they had inherited after the 2024 Copa America and all the racist chants, the fact that like Israelis were hardcore going for them. I just think it turned a bunch of people off. Like, all of that sort of culminated in turning people off. And then their in-game play in the final was disgraceful. Damn, that is the apex predator of zero sugar calories, or zero sugar soda, excuse me. All right. Luke, you have mentioned many times how much disdain, spelled wrong, that's okay though, you have for Connor and John based on their personal lives, which is understandable. But then you proceed to cover and discuss them whenever news drops or their fights are announced or take place. I guess my question is, and I ask this respectfully, not combatively or argumentatively, but that's okay. Wouldn't it be more honorable to not cover them at all then? Sort of. I mean, still cover the UFC 329 card up until the co-main, but then refuse to cover the Connor aspect. I admit it may hurt. It would 100% would hurt. Limit viewership for the post-fight and reaction show. And in no way would I suggest this be done for MK, as that show has so many others besides just yourself that are relying on its revenue. And I'm sure all the smoke would force you to cover regardless, which is true. They would. Well, I mean, they've never forced me to cover anything, but I imagine in that kind of scenario they might. But mainly I'm talking about on your personal channel. One of the main criticisms I see about you online is that you are very, very vocal about your disdain for the White House event, John and Connor, but yet you have no problem benefiting monetarily by covering them on your channel due to the online traffic and views the coverage will bring you. Yeah, that's just how the modern media works. Would it not be more honorable to stand on your principle and not give any of those things and fighters you find so deplorable, and in your words, which they never return to the sport, any airtime on your personal channel? Again, asking with all due respect, because I'm curious how you I don't have to rationalize it. Thanks for all the content. No, it's a completely reasonable question. I mean, there's a couple different responses I would have to this. One is that, yeah, I mean, on some level, if something is distasteful to you or objectionable in any kind of way, one person, one event, I don't know, one kind of thing, you have a right to not kind of cover that. And at times I have undertaken something similar to it, but then you kind of run up against the reality that ultimately, whether or not, and again, I'm not suggesting that there isn't a place at times for like what you're describing is basically a boycott, but the reality is the fights themselves are going to happen. And not only that, they are going to have some kind of meaning. And in fact, they're not taking place in some kind of alternative vacuum. Like, it's all woven into other parts of the industry. And the reality is, this is how I make my living. That's true. But I'm making my living by setting the terms differently from how not all, but many of the other entities, in fact, do this, which I believe is like a critical contribution to that kind of a thing. the event is going to happen, or a fight is going to happen, or something like that, no matter what. One way to handle that could be to say, I find it so distasteful, I want nothing to do with it, and I'm going to have no place in it. And it's true, there's no way to divorce any of the profit motive, but there's a lot more I could do to cover both of them, and I purposely do not. I purposely already dial back on it. And more to the point, yes, there is a profit motive inherent in all the coverage that I do. That's just the nature of how media works. But that's a claim you could make literally about any part of any media. Anything you hit publish on, the profit motive in ways that didn't used to be the case, they're now inextricably entangled, and there's no way to undo that. But again, the central point is not even that one. The central point is covering it critically, or covering it from a way that the general tenor of how the industry wouldn't, is actually I believe, a contribution. Now, the audience can ultimately decide how worthwhile that contribution is, or whether they agree with it, or whether they like it, or whether they want to hear more of it. But I believe that at the center of what I'm doing, not pretending that something is not happening, but rather acknowledging that it is happening, and then trying to cover it from a different lens, to me, is a justifiable value add. Now, of course, there can be debates about the limits of that too, or again, what would be a case where not discussing it at all? Like, so for example, I refused to cover Andrew Tate in any capacity in Misfits on MK. We just wouldn't touch it. We just absolutely wouldn't touch it. And you could say, well, that's an event that also happened. Right. But it's not of significance to the most important parts of MMA. John Jones, let's say, coming back to fight for a title against, well, Poton already lost, but let's say, whatever, like, but even that has some kind of significance that is not just some kind of gimmicky sideshow. Same with Conor fighting in a main event on one of the biggest shows of the year against a legitimate world-class opponent. This is relevant MMA, right? It's relevant. Like, you have to accept it on some level for what it is. Same thing with the White House. I actually feel very good about my White House coverage. I don't feel bad about it at all. Why? Because I was one of the only people being like, I don't think it's a good idea to partner with a fascist. I really do wonder long term what kind of association that's going to black mark, that's going to leave on the sport. And again, we don't know the answer to that. We shall see. But I actually feel like it's actually quite important to do that. I mean, you could make this argument for anybody. It's like, well, if you don't like so-and-so, don't cover it at all. But really what they do is they can get huge followings in other areas covering it critically. And then you could say, well, what is the point of covering it critically? This is the point. One thing that you might hear as criticism, this is maybe not the most forward one, but it's one that comes up occasionally, is that, well, let me see if I can articulate this. What is the point of what I do, essentially? If you're always critical, isn't that a recipe for at some point being wrong? On some level, that is true. Like, if you're taking an approach that is always adversarial, and I don't always do that, but you know what I mean, often adversarial, or routinely adversarial, or however you wish to describe the preponderance of that, you might end up in a place eventually where you get some stuff wrong. That's true. But the reason why that whole entire focus matters is because that kind of lens by which to view anything, MMA, art, you name it, you're providing a particular dimension to watch something. And I would argue, in combat sports case, the particular lens that I offer is just not one that there's a lot of. And again, the audience can decide how valuable that ultimately is. But I mean, the idea that's like, did you make money? Like, how much money did I make on my politics channel the month that was June? So it was last month I think I made around $3,000 on my LTGP channel. That's not a small amount, but I'm not going to live off of that. I view everything that I published in that completely ethical, especially under modern considerations of how modern media works. So there can be times where absolute repudiation plays a role. There can be times when, okay, maybe not absolute repudiation is playing a role, but the profit motive is so obvious that it's tainting the coverage. That's true. But I just know how I cover. I try to not tweet about John Jones hardly at all. I haven't put up a video about him in some time. I didn't mention him hardly at all. Obviously he was coaching for 329. For Conor, there's a bunch of reaction videos I could have made all that week. I didn't do that. But when I do talk about them, I say what I think, and I've earned the right to do that by virtue of the mechanisms in place that I've built. There's a profit motive that goes into that, but I don't know how you can do what I do without being able to make the profit motive. The profit motive makes this possible. I can't do this based on charity. I cannot offer this perspective based on just donations. And I get, decent ones here. I get even great ones sometimes. And I'm grateful for absolutely every single penny that comes through the super chat. But like by itself, that is not a thing that I can necessarily, rely on. I have to make a machinery that operates. And yes, there is a profit motive that goes into that, but that's true of literally any organ in media at any point. And yes, these are unsavory characters, but they're doing relevant things at a high level that is going to happen. And if the kind of coverage that I offered is not more widely available, then I believe I'm adding something to that broader kind of coverage. And then ultimately the audience gets to decide what its value is. But that's really what I believe. Sorry, I got something in my fucking eye this whole time. But that's really what I believe I bring. And again, I can't decide its value. That part I cannot do. Ultimately that's a decision I have no ability to make any determination on. But I can turn in what I have and then let the audience decide. And so I appreciate the question. It's a completely reasonable question. But I think the idea is like, if you don't like the UFC White House, don't cover it. No. If you don't like the UFC White House, try to provide coverage that you believe is value add, and try to do coverage that you believe is not like, directly just milking, how do I say this? Like you're just putting out content to put out content. But rather you're trying to put out content that is critical or offers a different perspective at important junctures. Like, so for example, in the lead up to the White House, there was that one event where Trump, it was the Yuri, what was the last Yuri fight? It was the Yuri Olberg fight in Miami, and Trump shows up to this. I put up a video on my channel after that because he got an icy reception, and that video did really well. I didn't think it would. I was actually quite surprised by that. That one actually did. I think that one cleared 100,000 views, not dollars, obviously. And like, did I have to do that? No, but no one else at that time inside of MMA was looking at that. I mean, the entire worldview that I offer in MMA is the reality is, it's so funny, right? Like people have basically stopped trying to argue with me about whether or not MMA is right wing. Then what they've retreated to is a secondary position. They've already moved the goalpost because that was obviously a nonsensical position to try and maintain. So they've moved it to a second position, which is okay, fine, it is. But then to like, to what end? To what's the point? And the point I keep trying to make to people is it is so overt, and not just the partisan valence, but that the partisanship is visible, that you can cover the sport from a political lens. Now you couldn't do it all the time, but like it's an available, like one of the things you learn in academia is different lenses by which to view the same thing, and how you have a different lens, you can see a problem differently depending on what analytical model you're using or mathematical model that you're using. You apply a different model, you get a different way of looking at it, and there can be different values. Some models more valuable in the analytical work than others, but that you change the view to see what materializes as a consequence. Engaging with historical text from one kind of analytical mode or one kind of textual interpretation, or changing that lens yields a new way of looking at it. Now, again, ultimately, you guys get to decide whether or not there is any kind of value, but that's the way that I see it. And so, saying like, oh, there's some kind of profit motive, I drive a 2015 Mazda CX-5. Like, I'm not doing poorly, but like, what would be the argument that rejecting most of the industry, rejecting relationships with managers, rejecting any kind of relationships with sponsors, I turn them down all the time, rejecting relationships with promoters, rejecting relationships in all these ways, how is that an argument about getting rich? I mean, you can do well enough, sure. That's true. Like, but that's the best way to get rich. The best way to get rich is to be embraced by power. The closer you get to power, the more money there is. It's the exact opposite of what the fuck I'm doing, which is why people don't do it. I am comfortable with the ethical parameters that I use, generally speaking. And there's been failures there too. Again, there's no system that's perfect, but like as a general proposition, no, I think I think of all the people making money in MMA, I've got the least compromised version of it. Thoughts on House passing the 2027 National Defense Authorization Act with Section 224, United States-Israel Defense Technology Cooperation Initiative? It's a very good question. The answer is I'm literally reading about it now, so I don't have a firm opinion. Well, I kind of have some, but I'm not really ready to share them. It's a perfectly reasonable question, but I'd like to punt on this one for just a little bit because got a little bit more reading to do to really formulate exactly what I would like to say about it. And y'all know me, I'm not afraid of Israeli criticism. When you worked at Bloody Elbow, did you ever have to take down an article? Man, that's been so long. Did we ever? I mean, I'm sure we did on some level, right? You mean like someone coming and being like, take that shit down? I don't. Oh, there was. It didn't involve me personally, but like I think eventually the site got sued by some people. And then there was ultimately a resolution in the lawsuit, but like some of the posts had to come down for that. But I cannot I mean, we had free reign. We had free reign. There may have been. This is a better question for Nate, who runs or is part of anyway of MMA Draw. He might remember better than I do. He worked at Bloody Elbow much longer than I did. He was the one that brought me on to Bloody Elbow. He might remember this in better detail. But I've seen other places take stuff down. I've definitely seen other places take or not publish stuff. I've definitely seen that. What is this? Man, the host of that show wouldn't let anyone finish their sentences. From the picture? From this one? Her name is Audie Cornish. She's great. Drove me nuts. Luke was about to cook when she cut him off again. So she's great. She has a very tough job to do. First of all, Audie is the only reason she's the one inviting me on the show. And folks might be asking, are you getting paid for those? No, I do not get paid. I get, they get me a car to pick me up in the morning, but I've actually rejected that at times too. I have a bike there. It's the CNN place is not too far from where I live, but it's her. She's the one inviting me. So shouts to Audie Cornish, is a legend. And the reason she wants me on there is like, how many people it was kind of funny. We went around the table when they sat us down before we went on air. And everyone was like, oh, where do you work? And it was like, oh, former DOJ prosecutor. Oh, like some outlet. I forget which one she worked for that was on the Hill, but she was like the White House reporter. She was like traveling with the president. And it was like, Brian Campbell and I talk about, obviously Brian's gone from the show, but it's like, I said I cover sports, but in my head, I'm like, yeah, Brian Campbell and I talk about doing whippets in the back of an Arby's parking lot. But I would argue that someone from that perspective, that background anyway, offering a vision of progressive politics that is often not featured on the network, I generally think is a good thing, or at least it so far has been a good thing. But she has a tough job, dude. Like talking on TV is fucking hard, bro. The segments are like 5 minutes long. You know what I mean? And you're up there with sometimes 2, 3, 4 other people. So it could be 5 on a set. And you get asked a big ass question and you have to sum it up, and then someone else can interrupt, and they'll play an asset on the screen or something, and you just kind of have to know. You have to have kind of like dunks ready, like you got to get right to your point. And I didn't do that. I was setting up a point, and it took too long. Like you just have to podcast. You can just kind of go and take your time, and it's fun. TV, man, you got to be right on top of it, bro. It's very, very hard. And I don't do it often enough to get good practice either. That's the problem. Like I go once a month. I mean, I did a bunch, obviously, in up to the White House card. By the way, I got paid for none of those. All those interviews you saw, I didn't get paid for shit on any of them. So it's like, oh, aggrandizing. It's like I was maybe boosting other people's content delivery systems, but I wasn't necessarily boosting all of my own. But yeah, it's just a very, very difficult needle to thread. You got to be authoritative, quick, clear, cogent, and you have to get out before someone else can get in, and that's hard to do. Off the back of the great NBA Finals and World Cup tournament, what have been some of your favorite non-combat sports games, moments, seasons? This one didn't get a vote up, so I'll go fast on here. Favorite non-combat sports games, moments in recent memory. Jaden Daniels' first season was magic. RG3's first season was magic. Alex Ovechkin setting the NHL scoring record was cool. What else has been kind of fun? Obviously I enjoyed a shitload of the World Cup games. Yeah, but I keep it local for the most part. Non-combat sports. Yeah, those have been some fun ones. Jaden Daniels, the second season really sucked, but the first season was fucking great. Fucking great. That win over Chicago with the Hail Mary might be my favorite. Can you guys see? Yeah. Or here. Luke, Ariel said the October Connor interview fell through because his camp wanted the sexual assault case off limits, not how he rolls. Who said that? Ariel said that? Okay, well, let me just keep reading. But when the interview finally happened, he skipped it. As someone who covers the space, does that read as a compromise to land the sit-down or a defensible editorial call? Well, it wouldn't be a defensible editorial call, and I'll tell you of an incident I got wrong. I've talked about this before. This is nothing new. I interviewed Gervonta one time for Showtime Boxing, and to be 100%, 1 billion% honest, nobody asked me, oh, what are you going to ask him? Nobody pressured me not to say anything. They let it rock. He showed up I'm not even kidding, 3 hours late. That's not an exaggeration. The interview was supposed to be at noon. He didn't come till 3:30 or something. It was fucking crazy. I was late for something else, but I had to do it. And he shows up late, and he had entire entourage with him, but they were fine. They were pleasant. But the interview, I thought it was supposed to go much longer, and then abruptly it gets called off. When it gets called off, his handlers are aggressive. They're like, it's fucking time, and they're doing that. And so I had planned. Truly nobody, not a person alive told me I couldn't. Not a person alive ever dissuaded me. I meant to get to his. Obviously his arrest stuff at that point. Now, he'd not been convicted. He'd just been arrested. And, I don't think he would have answered it very carefully or very forcefully anyway. But because they acted like their fucking hair was on fire, that he had to get out of there. I just kind of wrapped it up and then walked. And I was like, well, it would be too awkward to put it in now. But that's bullshit too. You got to do it at some point. You have to do it. And so, I regret that because, people often think, oh, well, so-and-so doesn't want you to say stuff. And that can be the case for a lot of people in a lot of cases, but it wasn't the case in mine. I mismanaged the timing of the interview. It was a weird thing. And then I kind of just punted because I didn't want it to be weird. And that's bullshit. You can't do that. You can't do that. And again, that was at the time, a very different incident. And it was before any kind of conviction. But nevertheless, just, getting at least a question in about it, I think is important. And I fucked that one up. But under no pressure. So I don't know. I didn't watch the interview. Speaking of trying to bask in the glow of content, I didn't even watch the interview. I know it did huge numbers. I think it's got I don't know, several million views. Maybe that's a fair way to put it. Or maybe I'm not sure. I think I saw it as 1.416, some huge number. And so I didn't watch the whole thing. There can be maybe a case like that where he wasn't under pressure and in the moment they just went a different direction for whatever reason. That's possible, but there wasn't a good there's no defense of the way in which I handled the Gervonta interview, and I struggle to know what would I'm trying to think this through. What would be the editorial argument for not touching it? I don't think that there could be. I mean, maybe I'm missing something, but the reality of Connor in that moment is the Irish are not traveling for him. His reputation is in tatters at home. He was also, in a legitimate courtroom, in a civil case, but in a legitimate courtroom, he was held liable for a particularly heinous act. And that had affected his business. And honestly, there's a question of is he back now in part because he might have a bunch of assets, but he could be cash poor. I mean, I'm just guessing. I don't know, but you know what I mean? It's worth interrogating that too. And I'm trying to think what would be the reason editorially you wouldn't touch that? I don't know that there would be one. So I don't know. I mean, I don't work in that office. I obviously don't know what kind of arrangement was made. There could be a case for something that I'm just not thinking of, but like asking me, like, just ask yourself, what would be the editorial argument that like this is irrelevant? I don't know that it would be. Um, or you maybe there's a question of like where you rank it in the priority of questions. There's maybe a debate to be had about that, but like I'm trying to think the editorial, like when we think about the most important things to focus on, the things that matter, the things the public should know or like, have some ability to have interrogated. What would be the argument for omission? I don't know. I don't know. But I've done shit like that, so what are you gonna do? Luke, I've been watching you on YouTube for years, okay? Your breakdowns of Izzy Costa and Volk Ortega were one of my main videos I watched in preparation for my first kickboxing fight, 1-0. I love the political commentary you give as a 28-year-old leftist black man in the urban part of Oklahoma. Jesus, fucking Oklahoma. I appreciate a different perspective to MMA media that doesn't include edgelord racist or racism adjacent humor, like every other channel that covers MMA that isn't studio backed. I love the sport, but it's rare that actually find other black MMA fans / fighters that aren't, quote, good old boys, end quote, and play into the right-wing movement in the UFC or at least are complicit with it. Would a new Democratic Socialist or Democratic administration affect the route that the UFC has? I got a question like this last week. Affect the route that the UFC has chosen for itself, or would it only further would it only further the divide that has been created? It's a very good question. We kind of got to it a little bit before. I think the only way they make a change is if any kind of future administration in any way prioritizes them for antitrust enforcement or some other kind of regulatory push around their business, that could change things. But that seems at this point, at a bare minimum, not imminent. And I think the other one would be if they just sold to new owners and then the owners decided, we're going to take this in a different direction or whatever. But I've made this point before. Like, it's not just that they have these alliances. Like, I know, like, for example, like, dude, Dana goes on, the Pivot podcast and he says things like, the UFC White House, left, right, center, it's for everybody. I'm like, but dude, this is very clearly not true. Like for a lot of Americans, association with Donald Trump is an automatic deal breaker. And to do it in that way in the middle of like, we're being bombed out of our bases in the Middle East, quite literally. Dude, I don't know if y'all understand this. We're being beaten out of American U.S. military installations by Iranian air power. That's a fact. That's a fucking fact. We've already been beaten out of, I think, 15 of them. And now in Jordan, which was supposed to be relatively safe before, and half that base is on fire. Like, in the middle of all of that, to say nothing of the Epstein files, to say nothing of, putting Fulbright scholars in ICE detention for writing op-eds, to say nothing of kick around the idea of getting rid of habeas corpus. I mean, you name it. Like, these are just facts of like where you are now. Like, you have this deep association. This is extremely off-putting to big parts of the country. Like, you're not. But like, as I also said last week, it didn't seem to bother them as much. I think they've kind of made a bet, like, we're going to be able to hold on to a lot of young men, maybe not like explicitly MAGA, but like right-leaning. And they're going to be loyal for, or the next generation will also come in that way. And, what we lose on the other end, we're going to make up for the fact that we have so much of our business entangled with the government, either by entrenching law that we want and or business dealings. I think they feel pretty good about being able to absorb a shock. So unless there is like heavy pressure on them or the people in charge just leave. And remember, the other part too is like, dude, Ari Emanuel is very, very connected within Democratic politics. His brother Ram is going to run for president. Now, I think he has no shot in hell. But nevertheless, like, can you imagine Ari Emanuel's brother wins the Democratic nomination? God help us. I mean, God help us. If something like that was to happen, a corporate Dem who can talk all he wants about how he is not pro-Israel, is like, pro-Israel to his fucking bone. And, being the brother of Ari Emanuel, can you imagine such a thing? It would be terrible for the country. But I don't think it's very likely anyway. But even if that doesn't happen, he's very, very well connected in those circles too. Like I only think there is a comeuppance if like there's major social change and or major government enforcement of a particular directed route, and those are things you should not dismiss, but they're hard to, oh, this is going to happen, in 6 months. It's not, these are slower moving forces that nothing happens, and then all at once, if it happens at all. What responsibility do people around a fighter have to protect the fighter's health, both in terms of stopping fights and guiding aging fighters towards retirement? Where do we draw the line between self-determination and protecting fighters who clearly can't protect themselves? I mean, this is obviously, some of these contours can only be defined by the participants, the fighter, the coach, the moment. For me personally, if you feel like, again, if someone has a retirement fight, that's kind of different. But like if someone's kind of competing and they haven't said they're going to hang it up, and there could be other scenarios beyond this one, but let's just posit this one. They said they're going to hang it up, or sorry, they haven't said they're going to hang it up, but they're getting to a point where it's like not really worth it. You have to begin to ask yourself, like, remember, damage is going to happen. Damage is going to happen. So under what consideration is that damage acceptable? And if you're not winning and the damage is getting worse, plus adding to what you already have, and you're not making a lot of money, how do you justify that? And that doesn't even have to be, you could have for a lot of money, and also the damage can be enough where it's too much. You know what I mean? Like it's not just that one thing. You're balancing a lot of different competing claims, but like you just have to ask yourself when it's worth it, when more is acceptable. And I think the older you get and the more damage you've taken, it becomes much, much easier to begin to say like this is just not worth it anymore. And I think for the most part, this is not a thing that nearly enough. It doesn't happen nearly enough. Everybody wants to kind of hang around in MMA to wait for a big payday, and sometimes you can do that. Like Mike Bisping hanging around, and he was on a film set when he got the call to fight Luke Rockhold, and does it on like less than 2 weeks notice, and goes out there and wins, and then gets another Dan Henderson fight on pay-per-view. Like that was a numbered event, and that was a big deal. He got some extra checks there at the end. That's kind of a big, or at least one extra check at the end. It's a big deal. And they got the St. Pierre fight too. So he had some big fights. But in general, like the need for that trigger to be pulled much earlier is something that I feel is there. Like we should be calling this off way earlier than we do, but we don't. Luke, any chance you could talk to Chuck about maybe disagreeing with you once in a while? This is something people have brought to my attention a few times. It seems like every topic he's in lockstep with you. And I get it. You guys probably do view the sport a lot in a lot of similar ways. But sometimes it just seems like you're repeating the same things, just slightly altered. I think one of the reasons we like to be seeing the other guests like Segura, Oscar, Jed, and even Jimmy Smith, when can you guys see? No, let me pull this up a little bit. Where was I? And even Jimmy Smith, when he was on, is that they have no problem disagreeing with you and offering an alternative perspective. Chuck, while beloved by all of us MK fans, comes off as he's so appreciative of the opportunity to be on the show that he doesn't want to ruffle any feathers. I don't actually think that is true, but I can understand why you might. Also, wouldn't be opposed to seeing Jimmy or Danny as a regular co-host on Mondays and have Chuck on the Friday rotation, but that's complicated by his other jobs. Either way, we'll always be watching MK regardless. Yeah, no worries. It's a question I actually get a fair amount of times, like, hey, he doesn't disagree with you a lot. It's true. And we're aware of it as well. I think what I can say is I do not think he is trying to cater his opinion to me out of like fear of pushback or something, because we've had private disagreements plenty of times, especially when we worked at MMA fighting. We've seen things a little differently. I just think that there is, frankly, a lot of symmetry between our views, and you've noticed it, and others have as well. Rotating around is something that we are trying to do, not just more of, but put more thought into how we rotate and when and who and what that looks like. And on what days is another one as well. Or other ways to introduce not phony friction, but legitimate differences of how people see things, right? Different lenses. So we're trying to still experiment with that. I think Jed is on tomorrow, so don't worry. But yes, it's something where people have brought up to me a lot, and I recognize that a more ideal scenario would be one where, again, not people at each other's throats like fucking idiots, but hearing different perspectives, and then the audience gets to decide which one's most appealing in that particular debate. What chance would you give Islam to beat Strickland? Say if he beats Ian and wants to go for a 3-time champ. Given Strickland was a former welterweight himself, do you think that'd be a stylistic good fight for Islam at 85? I don't. I think that MMA is an offense-first sport, and Strickland's game is very interesting to me because it's a defense-first sport or defense-first game that, like, the defense is the core of why it is excellent, and then the pieces around it he builds to get him over the finish line. He's the kind of the exception that proves the rule, but it's a very, very interesting way to approach it. But in part of understanding why that works is that he's physically well-sized for middleweight. And if Hamzat has a hard time holding him down, I have a feeling that Islam is going to have a hard time holding him down too, especially over the course of 5 rounds. Now, over the course of a 3-round bout, could he beat him? I'd probably still favor Sean, but that would be more interesting to me. But 5 rounds, no. He's hard to hit. He's well-sized for the weight class. His defense, in terms of getting up, resisting being held, breaking grips, pressure, work rate when he needs it, it's. I think that's a bridge too far. Could be wrong, but that's my opinion. Let's see here. Luke wanted to know if you saw President Trump's comments about those 4 fallen soldiers being in favor of the Iran war. Yeah, I did see that. Mm-hmm. Personally, I found Trump using dead soldiers who can't confirm or deny these claims to push his own narrative disgusting. It's completely fucking insane. I'm someone who's pretty moderate politically, with some views leaning more liberal and some more conservative, but I found your political coverage to be very informative and beneficial, even though I initially started watching you for MMA. So I was curious about your thoughts on this as a veteran. I mean, the veteran or not, you're a man of integrity, keeping up. And he says nice things about me. I mean, dude, the reality is, what is there even say about Trump anymore? I mean, he has had antipathy, and not merely antipathy, but disregard for the lives of service members from the word go. First of all, he dodged the draft, which I don't necessarily mind. I think the draft is immoral, but when other young men of his generation were called to a task, again, Muhammad Ali skipped out on the draft. But I think that, that by itself is not disqualifying, but it should be kind of like put somewhere in your mind because it could be interpreted one way or the other. By the act of resisting the draft, I have no problem with. However, like when you combine the larger piece of the puzzle where he is, he goes after the physical limitations of John McCain after being tortured, when he says he likes guys who didn't get captured, when he goes after the Gold Star families. I forget the guy Khan, who lost his son. He went after the Gold Star families as well. I mean, these are like hallowed, sacred, lines that you're supposed to respect for the ultimate sacrifice of military service. And he just tramples them. He is an oaf. He is a clueless shit for brains oaf who doesn't care about what other people mean to him. Lindsey Graham dies and he goes on Fox News that day, and all he's talking about is how Lindsey Graham wanted everyone to pass the SAVE Act. That's all he can think about. Lindsey Graham was obsequious to this guy to the fucking day he died, and the minute he died, his only value is just as a way to step on him so he can talk about passing, legislation that he wants to help curtail the chances of the left to win in upcoming elections. Like, that's all anyone ever means to him. He doesn't care that these people are dead. He doesn't care that future ones might die. None of that means anything to him. He does not feel for them. He does not care about them. He cannot. He has repeatedly shown all of this. The only value is what they can do for him. Like, they can get Maduro, they can bag him and take him, and they get a show of military might, and that makes him feel good. But that's the beginning and the end of it. This is a guy who they don't want to look at. Pete Hegseth on the military side. How many promotions are being denied to women and black men? This is a true story. Look it up. And all of the other generals and all the other admirals are saying this is fucking insane that these people are not being promoted, that they're purposely stopping it over and over again. What does this tell you? What does this tell you about what they think of their sacrifice, or what they think of what the hollowed, on the altar of freedom, what they have given? It means nothing to him. Anyone and everyone is just a pawn. You either serve his interest or you don't. It is a binary world in which he operates. Either you're one of his people or you are not. And if you're dead and you have no ability to speak for yourself, then he'll just make you one of his people anyway. He doesn't have respect for the living or the dead. It's the funniest thing is to watch people that, to go to bat for Trump, because it's like, well, you might like his ideas or something, but then they fervently go to support him. It's like, dude, when I tell you, and this is true for a lot of politicians, but like, it's unambiguously true. He doesn't give a fuck whether you live or die, like not even the closest little bit. Rolling back clean water protections, rolling back clean air protections, rolling back preservation of natural land and resources, handing over vast swaths of it to private entities, trampling on. I didn't have a problem with fights on the White House lawn, but in the broader scope of things, like of all the things to be mad about, like that's not a thing. Like, oh, they're having fights on the White House lawn. Like, who cares? But the fact that he took over East Potomac Golf Course, which was a public golf course for everyone in the city, for cheaply to be able to enjoy a special place in the city. My daughter had her second birthday there, taking it. I learned how to swim there, taking it all away, trying to put his name on the Kennedy Center, the reflecting pool. He has fucked that up more than you could possibly imagine. Did you see the Doge numbers, or the job numbers that came out? Like, the amount of jobs that the DC area lost is more than almost all the other losses in all the major metropolitan cities combined. He's fucking wrecked this place, and everything he just treats as his. Every little piece of land, every parcel of it, he just takes. That's all. That is who he is. He has no sense of community connection. He has no sense of honor. He has no sense of what is owed to the greater public. He has no sense of his own restraint. It's just a binary world of, do you help him? Do you not? Does he want to take it? Does he not? It's a very, very simple but very gross moral calculus. He's awful. Let's see. Okay, I'll answer this one. Oh, Jesus. All right, we got to make these a little shorter. But I'll go as long as I can. All right, Luke, while I love your content and have been following since the SiriusXM days, I took issue with the criticism you had in your post-fight video about fans on certain media seeming to not care about Conor's personal failings, excuse me. While I respect your desire to have all athletes be closer to upstanding citizens, that's really not it. I don't think it's fair to criticize us fans for not caring about that stuff. Well, some might. Yes, Conor is deplorable, and I hope and wish he gets his full comeuppance. But as a parent, I would never let my daughters anywhere near him. But my relationship with MMA is strictly for entertainment. I don't much care about fighters' personal lives. I really only care about what happens in the octagon. You see, this is the problem. I pay my Paramount subscription, and I paid for pay-per-view when it was a thing, so my relationship with the fight game is purely transactional. Now, as far as media, you all benefit financially from covering them and doing podcasts about them. So I get, as media, being more invested. But even with your criticism of them, don't they have to be more cognizant of what coverage they put out that fans will actually want to read or view? Well, aren't you making my point for me? They may genuinely hate what Conor has done and want to bring it to light, but given the landscape of MMA media at the moment, jobs appear to be scarce and reporters are less and less relevant. That's true. These people have to feed their families. Okay. I mean, they don't have to do these jobs. So it is imperative to put out content the viewers will actually like and want to read. I don't know. I guess I understood the spirit of the stance. I just felt it also was a bit unfair. You made it seem like fans and media are just okay with Conor's rape. I think for the most part they are. And assault charges. I think for the most part they are. When in actuality, fans are just looking for an entertainment escape, and media are just trying to put out what will gain them traction. Guys, I love MMA. I don't love it so much that I think it's a good idea to have it on the fucking lawn of a fascist authoritarian takeover of the United States. I don't think that's actually, like, you can love a thing and realize there might be some limits to how it is used or employed, or how it should be used or employed. The issue with that is if you have private feelings, again, it's not like every conversation about Conor has to be this way. For example, hey, I'm doing a UFC 329 preview. We're not going to talk about, we're just going to talk about X's and O's. Okay. That's a legitimate thing you can do. I don't think there's a problem with that. The problem comes in if you try to have a conversation about it. Now, I'm able to have it a little bit on this channel because I've carved out a little niche for myself. But like beyond the shores of this YouTube channel, guys, if you try to have a conversation about it, people will get angry with you about it. So it's not that you could say, oh, well, that they care, but they want it as entertainment. I would really question exactly how that works. And it's a slippery slope in a lot of different directions for a lot of different people. Do you still listen to, Michael Jackson? Do people, I don't know, do people watch the comedy of fucking Bill Cosby or whatever? These are questions you kind of have to ask. But I would say in the case here, the thing that really perturbed me was merely the idea that a conversation was superfluous. Don't need to have it, right? Like and if you tried to have it, you would get dogpiled online. You'll get abuse from other creators or other journalists or other actors in the space, and they'll act like the desire to have this as part of the conversation is somehow shoehorning it in. More to the point, they always move the goalpost. They're like, oh, well, he didn't get convicted of anything, which legally he didn't get. You can only get convicted if it's criminal, but it was civil. So they undermine it. No, Nikita Hand this and Nikita Hand that. I'm like, dude, I watched the trial. I didn't watch it with video, but I covered it every single day. I talked to Ireland's #1 crime reporter. Conor got fucking mollywopped in court. And all the things you see, like, dishonest right-wing media bring up, like, well, they didn't release these to the public, these videos of her after the fact. I'm like, who did see them? The people who chose that Nikita Hand was telling the truth. All of them motherfuckers saw it. And then if you want to suggest that this is inappropriate, you will get attacked for it. I'm living proof. You will get attacked. I mean, I was on vacation, but like anytime I tried to do it, I had I won't say who's, a friend of mine went on someone else's podcast and even just mentioned that, he lost kind of at trial. And then the comments were just fucking all over him. He got hate mail for it. Like, this is the problem. The problem is not that you have to introduce it every time, all the time. The problem is that they don't want to have a discussion for it ever, right? They want repudiation of it. They just, I just don't want to hear it. And I recognize there are some aspects about any one individual's life that are not my business or otherwise uninteresting, or I just don't need to know. But a public figure, the most popular fighter in MMA history, having all of the legal issues he had, not merely the Nikita Hand case, like all of that goes into something where you are then forced to like kind of reckon with what this ultimately is. How do you not, how is anyone shouting people down about that? What a shameful thing to do. And they did over and over again. People didn't want to see it, didn't want to hear from it, didn't want to engage in it. Same thing with the Trump thing, dude. They were so fucking starved for pageantry and big shows in MMA that they're like, you know what? I don't really give a fuck that we're on the lawn of a fascist. To me, which is incomprehensible that someone could think to have that same kind of moral calculus. But I recognize there's differences of opinion and people were able to do that. But at a bare minimum, I was at least able to have a conversation about that, not within MMA, because in MMA, nobody cares. But I'm sorry, dude, half the fighters, the vast majority of them that open their mouths about Conor all kind of defend him, or at a bare minimum, just say sort of like, general platitudes about him. Many have questioned about whether or not, he did anything at all. Dude, how many of these guys have partnered up with the Tate brothers who are just, I mean, what on earth would be the defense of that? I know that some on the right are trying there too. What a disgraceful alliance that anyone in MMA or combat sports could have ever had with a guy like that, and if you bring that up, they'll tell you you're the one. It's the same thing with the White House. People are like, why are you making it political? Why am I making it political? Are you out of your fucking mind? I'm responding to how political it has been made. That is what I am doing. But the real thing that you got to, that I think is the real source of the problem, is not even that. What you said was, I don't care much about any fighter's personal lives. I really only care about what happens in the octagon. Number one, I just don't believe that. The way that MMA works, even in an era where there aren't as many stars, is people get attached to fighters. They get attached to their lives. They get attached to the way that they fight. And yes, some kind of keep a good arm's distance. Most don't. The vast majority do not. People have preferences. This is very natural. People see people in these roles in larger than life ways. And even if it was true, which it's not, but even if it was true, that's a really weird thing to admit. Because to me, what I would say is I actually do care about them. Now, who they date is not my business. And, some of them end up committing crimes. Some of them end up having ordinary lives. I can't control for any of this. But I actually feel like going through the world and being like, I don't care what happens to these people who are getting themselves brain damage for our entertainment. I'm not saying you have to find them laudable or you have to find them interesting even, but I am saying that like that is a deeply, deeply inhumane response to the world generally. What other line of work would you say such a thing? I don't give a fuck how Starbucks treats the baristas. I just want my coffee. I got to tell you, I don't want Starbucks treating people bad. I don't give a fuck if Amazon makes the delivery drivers pee in bottles because they're not allowed to take restroom breaks. I just want my prime delivery, to happen as fast as possible. I got to tell you, I do fucking mind. I do. I think it's very, very irresponsible not to. What the limits of how we extend our sympathies outward in the world is entirely up for debate. And there's no one right answer and there's no one wrong answer. But to look at fighters and be like, I just don't give a fuck what happens to you. Because that's what you're also saying. You're saying, not only do I not care about what happens to them, when you're out of sight, you're out of mind, next thing up. I just feel that is just an irresponsible way to go through the world. And frankly, that is alarmingly lonely. That's a real lonely way to look at the world, man. Now, maybe you don't mean it in that way. And so I'm not trying to pick on you because the question is fine. I don't have an issue with the question. So it's a totally relevant one. But when you say things like, I don't much care about any fighter's personal lives, I only care what happens in the octagon. I pay my Paramount subscription and I paid for pay-per-view when it was a thing. So my relationship with the fight game is purely transactional. Number one, I just don't really believe that, at least not fully. And more to the point, dude, if we turn that attitude to the world generally, we will inherit and develop ruin. Like, it does matter to me whether or not the people around me or the things that I watch, like, again, we live in a capitalist society. I've said this before. I've got a phone here. This didn't get to me because, all labor laws have taken care of all aggrieved or otherwise. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, my God. Okay. Aggrieved populations that were all taken care of properly, and this is all good. There is no ethical consumption under this. But I just think turning a blind eye to, however it is materializes, but the needs of man. I mean, do I give $1 to every homeless person I pass? Well, no, in part because I often just don't have money. But you have to care about others on some level. And you have to care about a thing that you have, yes, you've given money towards, but you've participated in. You've put there is skin in the game in that sense. You have participated in this. Some level of what happens to these guys during this and what happens to them after this, I think are the only appropriate questions to be asked, quite frankly. I just don't, hey, the nurses who take care of us, I don't care if they're underpaid and overworked. I don't care if public school teachers are treated like shit. I got to tell you, I fucking do. I do. And I don't want to live in a world where we just decide, fuck it. We're talking about people on the bad end of things, but like the attitude that this kind of argument promotes is also one of, I'm not going to look at them in any way for good reasons, but that means you'll also look away when they are good and something bad happens to them. And that's why we get a lot of situations like we do. And I just don't think that's the way. I don't think that that's how I think it would speak very ill of a fan base if that idea were writ large. I don't believe it to be true. People saying, I just have fully transactional. I mean, there's probably some people like that, but I think more people don't let on to their preferences that are actually there. They are wounded. They do have particular affinity. But even if it's not, and even if it's not that way, you can't go through the world like that, man. You know, I don't need them to be Boy Scouts either. Like, dude, people say, fucking Johnny Evelyn was dropping the N-bomb on TV. I'm not going to lose my mind about it. You know what I mean? But like when you are watching another human being give themselves to something, you know, asking, at least having a conversation about whether or not they're a bad person, or to bare minimum, having a conversation about what we owe them on the other end. I think that this is bare minimum moral stuff. It's just my opinion. All right. With that in mind, we can do the paid portion. If you'd be so kind as to put in a donation to the super chat, or you can be a member, that'd be great. That'd be great. All right, let's see. Top 3 cinema experience. Also, I was pretty shocked you left Charles out of your most valuable fighters in the Bonfire podcast. Yeah, I'm not. I like Charles a lot, but like, I don't know. I'm less. I think he's more up and down than others might be, or more prone to it. But anyway, top 3. I saw Terminator 2 in 70 millimeter recently, the original film. That was cool. But I haven't had mind-blowing experiences. I haven't had like 70 millimeter IMAX or something. I haven't done that. I don't think I've ever seen a single movie 70 millimeter IMAX. So I don't have like a, oh my God, this changed my life kind of thing. Welcome to the party, sir. Do you think Islam retires if he finishes Ian Garry? I think if he finishes Ian Garry, he'll have another one or maybe 2 more after that. No, I think if he finishes them, he's going to stick around for a little while longer. But it really all depends on who they can get in front of him. That's the problem, you know. What a disappointment the Atlantic has become. The guy who runs it was a fucking prison guard for the IDF. Full of Israeli apologists and corporate do-nothing Dems, totally. It's wild to see the full-blown denial of the establishment over the obvious rise of the DSA. Dude, these motherfucking Dems are so terrified. It's insane. Bill Maher being like, well, they're running, these DSA Dems, they're running on abolishing borders and abolishing the police. Which ones, Bill? Which ones? Name them. Which ones, whatever the DSA website says, which campaigns are running on abolishing prisons and abolishing borders? Name it, because it doesn't fucking exist. What is really behind them, and there people like his anxiety and Fetterman too, is obviously the fact that the Democratic Party has been undressed as the failure that it is. It is a warmongering, corporatist, billionaire class fucking party. They're never going to deliver affordable college to you. They're never going to deliver affordable healthcare to you. Everybody fucking knows it. And here comes the DSA being like, hey, we believe in unions. We believe in access to healthcare. We believe in Medicare for all. In fact, we believe in reining in the abuses of Israel. We believe in taxing the rich. We believe in all of these things. And then you got these idiots going out there being like, you know, there's just not enough. They're not racially inclusive enough, and or they're mean to women. The same fucking 2016 Bernie bro bullshit. Oh, these guys are all misogynistic online. No, here is the reality. The DSA, and I'm not even a member of the DSA, and it's not even just about them, because there's other ones who are part of this sort of insurgent left flank. Abdul al-Sayed, for example, is not officially DSA. He's a Democrat, but you know, this, whatever you want to say what DSA represents, their campaigns are being run on kitchen table issues, and they're popular, overwhelmingly polling shows with independents. That is where the magic is. People don't believe the Dems are going to do anything anymore, because we know that they won't, other than stand with Israel and then stand with billionaires. That's it. That's what they're going to do. And why is that what they're going to do? Because that's all they've ever done. They cannot be remade in a different way, unless you just completely change over leadership and all manner. But you get the point. Like that, they have been undressed. The flank of the left saying, hey, we believe in, not having forever wars in the Middle East and being able to fund programs that make life better domestically. The Dems they hate that. They hate that. They don't want to deliver on these things, and they surely do not want to deliver on reigning in Israel, despite the fact that the base is 80-20 on wanting them to cut all ties and aid, or cut all aid and financing to Israel. 80-20 with the Dem base, 80-20. And this is the reality. What the truth is that people like Bill Maher or John Fetterman or Representative Gottenheimer or whoever you would like to name, that is like, Van Jones, they want you to believe what is really happening here is that a bunch of people who are crazy are getting a look, because what they want to do is they want to abolish prisons and they want to abolish police and they want to abolish borders. Meanwhile, when you pay attention to what their campaigns are saying, what they're running on, and what voters are voting them for, it has not a fucking thing to do with it. The thing that they are voting for them on is all the things I've already mentioned, which the Dems do not want. They do not want to deliver health care. They do not want to deliver affordable education. They do not want to rein in billionaires. They do not want to rein in Israel. They don't want to do any of it. They have no plans to do any of it. And everybody can see it. And they're looking around being like, yeah, you're insufficiently racially inclusive. Bitch, you're about to get fucking replaced. Can't wait. You got Neera Tanden on fucking Twitter all day trying to argue. I feel like Bane in Batman. She's out there trying to argue like, this is the party that has proven that centrism wins. And I want to look at her and be like, do you feel in charge? Do you feel in charge? Do you feel in charge? Look at where all the energy is. It's in the opposite direction of everything you recommend. She's the head of a Center for American Progress, a think tank here. Longtime Clintonite. They are terrified of a world where from the left flank, people will act like New Deal Dems and actually do what they say. They don't want a world, the existing corporate Democratic Party, they don't want a world where Israel is anything other than what it is right now, or more. They don't want another world. They're okay with the genocide. Again, back to Neera Tanden, she was like, well, I don't know if El Sayed can beat Rogers in Michigan. Oh, I guess I got to go vote. I mean, I'm not in Michigan, but, I guess I got to go vote for Haley Stevens. Let's see. Let's check who's taken money from AIPAC to the tune of her campaign anyway, roughly $30 million fucking dollars in this race. What are we talking about here? Like, I just have to support a person like that? Nope. They want to leverage vote blue no matter who over everyone. And I'm fucking done. That party has brought ruin to themselves and the world. They have no moral or practical or electoral ground to look down on the part of like, you would think they would want to embrace the insurgent part of where the energy is within the broader movement, and for the reasons it's being embraced, because it's winning not just with that portion of the left, but across all of the voter base on the left and among independents. And then some of this stuff wins with the right too. Stuff like reigning in Israel and whatnot. They're terrified, brother. They're terrified. They're fucking terrified. Bill Maher being like, I might have to vote Republican. Let me get this straight. You said that to JD Vance's face, you said that voting, JD Vance has never once said Donald Trump lost the 2020 election. And you even said to him, the election denial shit, you have to cut it out. And you would vote for him over someone from the insurgent left who is running on unions, affordable health care, and cutting aid to Israel. And the answer is yes, he would. That's exactly what he thinks. That's exactly what he believes. They would rather partner, Diet MAGA, they would rather partner with the right than partner with their own left flank, despite where all the electoral energy is clearly coming from. Fucking cowards, one and all. And more to the point, even if none of that was true, like they have no plans on delivering anything. They don't want to deliver. They're not going to deliver. They've never delivered. They have brought ruin to the world, and they want to crush the one burgeoning area of interest. Like, look, like the Democratic brand, what does it pull? Like single digits in terms of favorability? And they got the balls to be like, yeah, we're the ones in charge. You're the one in charge? For now, maybe. LT, you caught flack last week for saying Whitaker isn't a Hall of Famer. I mean, he will be, but like, I get into this problem all the time with people. Won the belt, defended it, KO in 3 weight classes, wins against top competition. Great. That's not Hall of Fame. Like, he will get into the Hall of Fame because the way in which the Hall of Fame runs, he would clearly qualify for it. The thing that people misunderstand is if you look at the Hall of Fames for other, let's say, North American sports, let's say American football, brother, you're not getting in with that kind of like, and that's a very, 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 very good resume. I mean, you could say so many wonderful things. Dude, Robert Whitaker's been a credit to the fight game. I've loved covering his career. But like, if we're talking about like the elite of the elite of the elite, no, he does not belong in that group. That's who belongs in the Hall of Fame. Top G arrested, flags at half staff at UFC PI. People get this wrong. They think that Dana White greeted him at a UFC event. He did not. He greeted him at a power slap event. But, you know, the whole, like, big portions of the right have lined up behind him. Dude, fucking the Tate's former lawyer is in the Trump administration now. What's his name? Ingrassia? Paul Ingrassia? Like, that's that's Tate's former fucking attorney. Dude, how about all the MMA fighters who posed with these two clowns? Right? And all the people who were like, these guys, they have good ideas. They have good ideas if you're the dumbest motherfucker alive. They have good ideas if you can't tell the difference between strength and absolute poison. Like, oh, what's better to drink, this water or pure bleach? They'll sell you on pure bleach every time. And then people will be like, what do you mean you don't like pure bleach? Well, I mean, just the most fucking insane ideas ever with an incredibly sketcy background at a bare minimum. And then people being like, yeah, these guys are fuck. Do you know how disreputable that is? I cannot, like, that is such a disqualifying thing to me that, you know, the lack of judgment, the multiple layers of the lack of judgment, like, hey, this guy might be bad news. There's worth keeping some distance. Obviously, they're facing actual criminal charges in multiple countries at this point. There's so much what we already has been released on camera evidence of him kind of describing and discussing and even engaging in behavior that can lead to and has led to criminal charges. To say nothing of what we don't even know. Did you see the New Yorker profile on him and all the charges and like all the ways in which they put together pieces of evidence to look at his trail of violence with women he was engaging in at the time? Fucking bananas. Like, the layers of, like, you have to be a moral black hole to defend something like that. And then to just not even understand from like a risk assessment, like, you know, protecting your identity and brand, I should say, like, to just engage with that, just absolute no judgment at all. VCU trombone, shouts to the Rams. What do you think about James Tallarico? I mean, he's better than Ken Paxton. You know, he seems like a Diet Obama or something. I'm not sure. He's better than Jasmine Crockett. And he's definitely better than Ken Paxton. It's kind of how I thought. That's the long. I don't think too much about it beyond that. He's not my kind of guy, but he's not like, I don't hate him or anything. Live card watch along for GFN on Monday. Oh, are they doing that whatever that webinar, whatever the fuck? Maybe. I might actually, maybe. Did you see Samuel Moyne's interview on Breaking Points? It was interesting talk and topic. I saw Rokana and Thomas Massey on there. I saw I did not see that. No. Oh, I saw what's his face. You guys see Crystal Ball interview and debate Representative Adam Smith? Bro, she fucking destroyed that bum. Luke, donation for your weed fund. I'm going hard in the paint at San Diego Comic-Con on the hunt for those Predator Dutch toys. Much love, King Donk. Yeah, good luck, bro. People don't like it when I talk about them, but you know what? Fuck it. I love talking about them. Plan to see the Odyssey. Yes, I'm definitely planning to see it. I was going to see it earlier in the week, guys. Oh, my God. Oh, my God, you're going to kill me for this. I was going to see it on, like, Tuesday morning. And then Tuesday morning comes around. I'm like, oh, I have work I got to do. So I was like, you know what? I'm just not going to go. I'm going to stay home and work. And I recorded 3 videos. And then I go to edit them. And there's no audio in any of them. And I'm like, oh, my God. So I was able to re-record one of them and get them out. That was the Dana one that I did. But I was fucking crestfallen. I was like, I should have just gone and seen the goddamn Odyssey. I will see it. I've not seen it yet. Have you gotten to watch The Furious yet? I did. Okay. I'll give you a very basic review. I liked it. And there are some scenes in it that are phenomenal. But I will tell you, I don't like it as much as I like The Night Comes for Us, and I don't like it as much as I like The Raid. Because one of the things that The Furious does is they are clearly wearing wires in some of the fight scenes, and they're doing like unusually acrobatic things that you could only do with wires. And it almost like pro wrestling izes the fight scenes, whereas they're harder and they're grittier. And yeah, they're phony in all the movies, right? It's not real blood. They're not shoving real knives into their guts, but they take on a little bit more of a earthly, normal-ish. I mean, normal, but within the laws of gravity kind of a way. I still like The Furious. If you haven't seen it, it's great. You'll love it. And the fight scenes are super, super well done. But I will say for my personal level of enjoyment, I prefer when they don't do stuff like that. I don't mind acrobatics if they're actually fighting gravity. I do mind it. And then also the sound editing in that movie is weird. Like they have almost like it's cartoonish editing for when things land on each other or what things sound like when they're walking on. You know what I mean? Like they just took it like, here's normal. Let's take it to fucking 15. Whereas maybe like 10 or 11 would be, in my judgment, more suitable. And if you haven't seen The Night Comes for Us, it's bloody and gory as shit. So I don't mind the suspension of belief, but I don't like guys who look like they're in zero gravity. It ruins it for me a little bit. Can you paint a picture of the societal reaction to Y2K during your time? Where was your mindset? My brother explained to me that it's much ado about nothing, which he was ultimately right about. So I wasn't worried at all, but people were definitely doomsdaying. It wasn't so crazy. It wasn't like pandemic crazy. It was more like not half the people. Some people believed it. Most didn't. But they were kind of curious, kind of wanted to see what would happen. There was some alarm that was out there. But honestly, during that whole time, I remember my brother and I just talking about it, and he put my mind at ease. So I never really treated it all that seriously. Luke, not sure if you remember me mentioning Abdul Hussein in UAE Warriors. Maybe. He's in the UFC now. First fight, next event. Would love your thoughts. I have not seen him, but now I've got a thing I got to do. Abdul Hussein. Let me get a pencil. Abdul Hussein. Okay. How vital is independent media when experts like Katie Fang or lawyer Mark Elias build platforms on YouTube and X? Without them, would we even know what's happening in the world? It's scary right now. There's just so many stories that aren't being told. I think that any way that media can, speaking of previous questions about profit motive, I mean, you don't have to be rich, and I'm not, but like any way, like this, the thinking about media now as like a great time to be a taker, it's just so fucking silly. Like the money in media, I mean, there is some money left for like a handful of people, but there used to be a lot of money for a lot more people. In fact, it's only gotten worse. This is why these questions about like profit motive, it's a fine question, but it's kind of silly because like we're talking about a majorly dilapidated industry and only getting worse. So any way that anyone can find a way to build an independent platform or maybe with others or joining a bigger one, like whatever the case may be, any way stories can get told, it's important. I mean, consider like, local media has done a lot of dying recently, local newspapers, local news, radio stations and more. And a lot of places used to have like a city hall reporter and now there isn't one. I mean, for people with acting in a place where reporters used to show up and now reporters just don't show up anymore, it's going to be a lot easier to get away with stuff that would never be able to fly before. And who's that good for? Is that good for democracy? Probably not. Is that good for your local community? I would suspect it's not a great thing. And this is happening in a bunch of different places. So any way a person can get a platform, whether it's a Substack, a YouTube channel, whatever, not anyway, but most ways, I think that we kind of have to just embrace like that's just the way media works now. It's not ideal, far from it, but it's so broken there's no way to go back. Who wins Charles Armin 2? I still think Armin wins the second one. But I wouldn't mind seeing it, is the way I would put that. Realistically, what would it take for you to tell us all what Rogan told you? I don't know. I've thought about this. I'm not sure what the answer is. Must be pretty damning if you still haven't told us at this point. Again, it's not so much that it's damning, although it's not great. It's more just that there's just a level of harassment that will happen. Like when I tweeted my lecture that I did at the University of Maryland, again, I was invited to and I did it for free. No one paid me nothing. And I tweeted, I didn't think anything of it, and there was this fucking dog pile. Like, I mean, it was this crazy response, which ended up serving me in the end because I sold a gazillion different subscriptions to it as a consequence. So, all's well that ends well, I suppose. But like that one caught me by surprise. But then there are times, man, there's just certain subjects that like I just know if I weigh in on them with the way I want to weigh in on them, it's just going to be it's going to be a tsunami. And do you want to deal with that? And for the most part, I don't. As a fight fan, what are your favorite techniques and sequences? I remember long ago you said you love knees to the body on a grounded fighter. That's a big one that I love. I love seeing a good jab as long as it builds. I like seeing a good jab no matter what. I just like seeing good fundamentals lead to slickness. I don't just like seeing good fundamentals without a big payoff, or people who try to be slick who don't like fundamentals. That's why St. Pierre was kind of fun. Like at least early in his run, he'd have a lot of fundamentals and they would build to some kind of triumphant moment. That's the kind of thing that I love. Can the left appeal to fans by improving the conditions of fighters, breaking up UFC monopoly? I don't know. There's millions of fans of UFC or WWE and boxing. How's no politician trying to appeal to them except Trump? It's a good question. Well, Rubio is trying now, but the right basically is trying. It's totally true. It's totally true. Like some measure of engagement is probably owed here, but it's just not natural for them. And I think that says a lot. And also they've been pushed out too. I mean, it's not like UFC is in combat sports is rolling out the fucking red carpet for the left, but they're also doubling down on their own problems. My best friend Samantha is a huge fan, and it is her birthday. Can she get a happy birthday? I don't tend to do. This is not a hip hop station. Thanks for all the content. I watch every live chat. I'll do it this one time, but I appreciate the donation, but please don't do this because and then everyone starts doing it. But happy birthday to, I don't know the last name, but Samantha, I'll just say. Thoughts on Taint Brothers getting pinched? Will the administration save them? So far, they're saying they won't. I kind of addressed this one earlier. So far, they're saying that they won't. Long overdue. Long overdue. And people have been like, oh, they haven't been convicted of anything. Yeah, I would like for them to have a day in court, though. If they win, they win. I would like to see them have their day in court. Chad, welcome to the party. Thoughts on Ariel pressing Dustin about his N-word use and not Johnny Eblin? Maybe he didn't see it. I don't know. And also trying to beef with MMA fighting despite being around all of them at IFW. I don't know. People brought this up last time, and I didn't see it. So what was the issue there? Was it about attribution? You guys want me to be involved in like Ariel's beefs, and I'm not involved in them. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know how to answer this question. I have no fucking idea. Like why one was asked about one and not the other. Clearly he can do it. Like, he didn't. I don't fucking know. I don't know. People ask me, it's like, yo, Luke, when are you going to, say horrible things about X, Y, and Z? And it's like, on my time, not yours. Luke, did you think there was something to FIFA being biased for Argentina during the World Cup, or is it a conspiracy? Argentina is the only team that didn't have a single VAR call go against them. Yeah, I don't fucking trust them. Luke, you're often on Mike Bond's pod, though UNBC always used to make jokes about him getting handsy on a flight. What is that story? Oh, that's for another time, fucko. Jokes often equal truth. Oh, no. Is he problematic? No, brother. Quite the opposite. No, there's nothing sinister. Zero. If anything, a bit of a ladies' man. Like, no. Not like that at all. All right, let's see here. Will Islam be able to take down Ian Garry? Eventually. The question is not whether he can get him down. The question is how often, how quickly, and how long he can maintain that. Can he get him down? I think so. How much is he going to struggle for it, though? Predictions for the major sports final winners, 26-27. I have no clue, brother. Any DC team. Commanders, Wiz, Caps, Nats. I don't know. 2 questions. What fighters ranked at heavyweight will give Gable problems? Blades, maybe. Number 2 is, would Patty versus Moicano be the fight to make if Topuria isn't ready? You could do that. You could do that also, Patty versus Holloway, if you wanted to do that. It depends on what the UFC would want. But I think Tom Aspinall could give Gable an interesting fight. Josh Hokett, anybody's got a big size, wrestling background, that kind of a thing. Good athlete. Have you watched Citizen Vigilante yet? No. Is that the one that Musk was like, this is great, and the guy's like, the cannibal's like killing everybody? No, I didn't see that one yet. Thank you for the answer on Connor Ariel interview question. Ariel has avoided the question on the nose and said there aren't other MMA shows where questions like that can be asked, so I came here. Again, I don't know what the answer is. These are only questions he can answer. I don't mean this like pejoratively. I don't watch the show. I don't have fucking time. It's not like I don't have the time. I don't have the fucking time. So I see clips and stuff like that, and then you guys bring it to me, and then you want me to weigh in on it, and then, yeah. LT, I ran some numbers on title fights, and the UFC is on pace for the lowest number in a calendar year in a decade. What the fuck? 20% lower than previous. Any ideas why? Costs, maybe, which wouldn't make sense because they got a bunch of money from Paramount. I'm not entirely sure. I'd have to see the numbers, but I've noticed that there's less, but I don't know if there's what the grand unifying theory is. Cost would be one, at least could be a contributing factor. Trying to meet specific forms of international demand could be another, but I'm not entirely sure. Well, the women's game being in decline is another one. Is Rose leaving Whitman her downfall? It could be. I mean, I think she was already in a different stage of her career by the time she had gone. So I think expecting symmetry already was a bit much, but yes, there probably is something to be said for that. Mm-hmm. Did you see the Nicaragua president pulling the plug on democracy? Yeah, I said there was no more elections, although someone, Aaron Mate, challenged the translation. Surely Trump's reaction to that must have been, wait, there's an option. Someone said, Mate said there was a mistranslation. Let's see here. Let me see if I can find it. Aaron Mate is like this independent, like left-leaning journalist. Let's see. What did he say? Here it is. All right. He said, Ortega didn't say this. He said that Nicaragua won't allow U.S. finance candidates and election meddling. That's very different than claiming Nicaragua will no longer hold elections. I've not seen what the accurate translation is, but there's at least some different interpretation of that. Can the donk be coached out of a fighter? Tommy McMillan trains under Tim Welch, who also coaches under O'Malley. So it's not like Tim has a history of tolerating defensive irresponsibility and getting hit. So yes is the answer. You can do that. Hold on, let me see something here. You can do that, but you risk changing a fighter to the point of making them just worse. Like some level of donkery has to be maintained if that's like a natural way that they compete. And for me, McMillan having a great gas tank and being able to apply pressure through long durations of a bout, you would want to use that. Who are your top 3 UFC strikers? I've got Gon with his distance management, Imavov's crisp machine gun combos, and then Proches, a sniper with no drive-bys. Yes, indeed. He's a great one. I mean, obviously Izzy's in a different place. Volk's a different kind, but I like Volk's striking. I think it's very, very cerebral. I really like it. Petr Yan. Petr Yan's got a really dynamic style, very adaptable, tons of different options, mixes in well with takedowns or disrupting rhythm, can flow from either stance. I love his game. Topuria is another good striker. Obviously, Justin Gaethje's another good striker. I like the Muay Thai styling of Charles Oliveira as well. I mean, there's so many different choices. What do you think the actual competitive sport structure in combat sports looks like that will allow athletes to compete freely for titles and simultaneously allow for the free flow of commerce? I mean, anyone where you could do a monopoly if you had a federated system, or you can just do a multipolar independent contractor model, which is what they have with boxing. Same with boxing. I don't care who Turkey kills. Yeah, see, well, first of all, I don't think, Jesus Christ, I don't think he did anything. I'm not, well, there's been some reporting about him being not necessarily the nicest guy, but I do. Yeah, I don't want a sport to be in party with people like that. Does Strickland have a Hall of Fame worthy career by boxing standards currently? See, this is a tricky one because he doesn't have enough achievement. If Robert Whittaker doesn't have enough achievement, he certainly doesn't, right? But at the same time, he did something like, honestly, I would consider almost historic. You know, to be an accidental champion once and then to be an accidental champion a second time. Are you really accidental at that point? But to be treated in such a way and to overcome and to beat a boogeyman, that's a big fucking deal, dude. That's a big deal. So, you know, but if we're just talking like, does he have enough elite accomplishment? No. But I think he might get in. I think he might. You mentioned allegations about Poatan when talking about Connor's disgracefulness flying under the radar, unlike Gable Steveson. Can you expand on that? Thanks for the great content. There was a whole report. I missed a lot of it in real time, and I got hip to it once the CBC did a report. I have to do a video on this. Basically, he has. Hold on. Let me make sure I got this right. One second. He has a okay. Let me read to you the CBC report. I'll put it up here on the screen. All right. I won't read the whole thing, but it's kind of long. Okay. Here. It's this one, but it's going to be hard to read. So let me just read it. Alex Pereira, a prominent mixed martial arts fighter set to headline the UFC White House event, is facing allegations of abuse from 2 women, and it isn't the first time. Court records reviewed by CBC News. This is like, you know, the I don't know, ABC or CBS of Canada, or BBC of Canada, whatever, including depositions, allege the 38-year-old Brazilian UFC fighter engaged in misconduct, including assault, forcible confinement, coercive sexual encounters, and stalking. With Pereira now vying for a championship in a third weight class, many combat sports enthusiasts are expected to turn into Sunday's fight. The allegations, which Pereira denies, were first reported by Mikey Backus for German broadcaster ARDWDR, and they come as blah, 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 blah. Okay. The ongoing case was filed in the Domestic Violence Division of the Miami courts in July of 2025 by a German MMA presenter known as Merle Christine, who was in a relationship with Pereira for roughly a year. Christine told CBC she has taken Pereira to court for her protection and to seek a restraining order, quote, so he cannot contact me anymore. He cannot speak about me anymore. He cannot instrumentalize his fans anymore, which is very important for me in my life, end quote. CBC emailed Pereira's lawyer on Wednesday to comment on the allegations, but had not received a response on Friday night. Christine and Pereira met in 2022 when he was at an MMA event in Germany. She's fluent in Portuguese and acted as his translator. Their interactions soon became more intense. Quote, he always said, I conquered you, end quote. Christine says she left her marriage, her job in her country to be with Pereira in the U.S. The moment I entered his door, his behavior changed. The moment he knew I gave up everything for him, his behavior changed. In court documents, she alleges Pereira engaged in controlling and isolating behavior. She alleges he pressured her to have sex almost every day, sometimes depriving her of sleep until she gave in. In one specific incident, months into the relationship, she also alleges Pereira was violent and forcibly restrained her, taking her cell phone away and attempting to confine her to a room. There was more in a Jan 7th deposition. He denied any acts of violence toward her. He accused Christine of slapping him. He also denied confining her to a room. Here's the issue. Christine wasn't the only woman to level allegations against the fighter, however. In 2024, Meredith Brown started posting a series of TikTok videos. You might remember this one, in which the then 21-year-old accused Pereira of sexual assault in a New Jersey hotel following a UFC event. He denied Brown's allegation in a Miami deposition for Christine's lawsuit and said their encounter was consensual. He also confirmed that he gave a statement to police in New Jersey. Both Brown and Christine say they have faced online abuse and threats after speaking publicly. There's more than this. He also had a conviction previously in Brazil related to this report. Hold on, let me find it. He also had a previous conviction for it in Brazil related to domestic violence. So it was actually the 3 of them. Now, again, the question is, what is the conversation to be had here? We should have one. at some point, or we should have already had one at some point, or by this point, I should say. But the thing I go back to again is it's not like this has to be a part of like, oh, we have to, every single video we make has to be about this. But it's like, there was no discussion about it. Like this is the point I'm trying to make. It's like, we don't give a fuck, and you could say, well, I don't believe these allegations, or I don't believe those allegations. And that's fine. You're allowed to say that, but like, you're not allowed to have a conversation about it. We don't want to have a conversation about it. That seems a little much. Who would you favor between McMillan and Rahiki? Is this some kind of fucking... I don't know what this means. LT, why do you feel the need to wear a suit jacket almost exclusively for your other channel? It comes off as grandstandy and obnoxious. Partly I'm trying to differentiate the way it looks one channel to the other, which is there's not much going on there. It's not grandstandy. Most of the political, well, I mean, I suppose people will ascribe motives to you, and they'll be like, wow, this is very grandstandy of you. And I'm like, guys, I'm just trying to look presentable to audiences that are not MMA audiences. Like, I realize that you don't have to wear a jacket. Maybe it means nothing. Some people have said don't wear one at all. It would look better if you didn't. And that's certainly a debate you can have there too. But like, I'm only doing it because I am trying to make myself presentable to other audiences who might not know me. And you get a comment like this, be like, oh, it's obnoxious. Like this is how people read into you. Like they're like, in the end, I can't tell him how to feel. You know what I mean? He can only feel the way he feels. But like, I swear to God, dude, I'll wake up and be like, yeah, oh, the weather's nice. Fuck you for saying the weather's nice. That's grandstandy and obnoxious. I'm like, I'm just saying the weather's nice. This jacket is cheap. Like, it's not, I'm not wearing fancy shit. I'm just trying to have a bit of a different look in case someone who might be older, who's not aware of who I am, is not just seeing some fucking guy wearing t-shirts all the time. And again, there's an argument to be made that it actually would be better for getting those kinds of people. I can hear both sides, but I don't have anything other than just, I would like to be presentable to new audiences. Jesus fuck, dude. People will accuse you of fucking insane things in their mind and then decide that that's real. Luke, would you ever go on the Young Turks? Depending. Sure. Past 4 days in Minnesota, Somalis have caused 4 mass shootings. They did. One of them murdered 3 property managers over a $65 parking pass. National emergency. I'm going to guess that the claims being made here would need to be reviewed before any kind of intelligent commentary could be offered. What did you expect while watching MK2? It's no Citizen Kane, but it's the best MK movie. That's not saying much. And is exactly what would one expect. No, it's not. I would expect a plot to be followed. Why do you feel so aggressively negative about it? Because it's offensively bad. There's like not good, poor, bad, really bad, and then there's offensively bad, where you're not even trying to tell a story. You're trying to put together and stack on top of each other different pieces of things that look like art so you can call it art, and there's nothing to it. The story is, first of all, mostly doesn't even make sense, and even to the extent that it does, it's uninteresting. It's about Outer World and taking it over. Yeah, but the way in which they do it, there's no real interesting twist to it. There's no real character development whatsoever, except for Shao Kahn a little bit, I suppose. Some of the fight scenes are a little bit better and gory, but they're too far in between. Johnny Cage is kind of interesting in the way the actor plays him, but you know, that the way they use him in the movie is still very confused. And why is Johnny Cage the centerpiece of anything anyway? He was never the most popular character. Like, it was just bad. The CGI also wasn't very good. The dialogue is shit. And you're like, oh, I'm not expecting much. I'm expecting to be entertained. That's it. I'm not expecting to be like, wow, man, I'm so glad they use these IMAX cameras to really get this cinematic shot. I don't need that. But you got to put in a little bit of effort. Practical effects, a little bit of effort. Plot, a little bit of effort. Dialogue, a little bit of effort. And they just didn't bother. It's just fan service stacked on top of each other. What adjustments you feel Tom has to employ against Gon? Take him down, but he can't be at the end of his range. That's the issue. He could not be at the end of Gon's range. And what subsequent adjustments Gon needs to build off of his initial success? That one's harder to say. I mean, I think he was doing all the things he needed to, and he wasn't fully tested, so we don't really know. But for a guy like Tom, finding a way to establish range on his terms, whether he is receiving or whether he is pressing, is gonna define whether he wins or loses. You see Sophie Maga Barbie's latest comments? Who is Sophie Maga Barbie? Who the fuck is that? I don't know who the fuck that is. So interesting to you. So interesting listening to you talk about the Democratic Party deals with its base. The Republican Party uses the exact same tactics to deal with their far right wing. Yeah, they don't. I mean, I don't know that I have great sympathy for their far right wing, but it's pretty clear that these corporate power structures are doing everything possible to deny insurgent movements within themselves for the sake of maintaining status quo. Thoughts on Americans handing a nuclear empowerment deal to the Saudis? Again, this has to do with, well, obviously the energy crisis that is both looming and upon us. It's just very, very funny to me that the country that did 9/11 can get 90% of the way towards a nuclear weapon, and then the country that didn't can't. Really enjoyed the World Cup. I did too. I had a great time on the World Cup. I thought this World Cup was fucking awesome. I hope Netflix doesn't get the next one because Fox did a good job. In general, I think that's true. In UK, it's mandated by law to air the World Cup on BBC. Is it really? That's funny. I thought the World Cup was great. I mean, the finale kind of sucked. VAR was terrible, and the U.S. men's national team is ass. But there was so much magic in those games, and the expanded format really worked too. Tell us what Rogan said, or I start my lawn. Better get that thing fired up, player. When you were on CNN for that clip, when were you on CNN for that clip for your political channel? Last Friday? Are you set to become a more recurring guest now? No. It's not like a bunch of people invited me on CNN when the White House thing was happening, but they're not inviting me anymore. The one person who invited me before that and after that is Audie Cornish. That's the one who's inviting me. So I'm like basically at the mercy of however she wants to incorporate me into the show. I mean, I think she's going to bring me back, but I don't know, you know. I'm beginning to work out and I'm trying to do free weights, but I can't seem to figure out a proper plan. What's your suggestion for workout plans, advice, recommendations to get started? I know exactly the guy who can help you. I mean, he's a little bit more for advanced people, but he knows how to build a program and build not just a training block, but several, like a mesocycle. Is you guys know Roman Mori, ROMANMORI? He's got his own ideas. He's got a very fiery personality. You don't have to like, you know, you can like or dislike anything you want about him, but he's got a real clear sense of how to train in a way both to get jacked and then be useful for any kind of individual sport you're doing. And he sells programs. You could also use just AI if you wanted to, but if you're looking for like a person's hand, Roman Mori, hit him up on Instagram. Need some DC advice. Wife and I are having dinner at Rooster and Owl tomorrow. Then her first live MMA at PFL. Any Sunday brunch recs near Eastern Market? There's that new place that opened next to the bookstore right across the street from it. I don't know the name of it, but everyone's raving about that bitch. I mean, I'm like trying to think good. I don't ever get good. I mean, there's good brunch down by if you're at Eastern Market, you're not far from Barracks Row. There's a couple of spots on Barracks Row. And if you're not far from Barracks Row, that means you're not far from, you know, Southwest Waterfront. I'm trying to think of like, or even the problems is the brunches are at the wharf are fucking madhouses. I don't get brunch ever at Eastern Market, so that's a little hard for me. I get a lot of dinner around there. They got that wine bar. What's the name of that fucking street? Hang on. Oh, it's on 4th. It's on 4th. Straight up on 4th in Pennsylvania. If you're on Pennsylvania, make a left on 4th north. And first of all, there's the Italian place that makes pizza, not pizza, Pinsa. It's like a lighter area pizza. It's fucking awesome. And on the other side of the street, there's that wine bar that has killer ass food. I forget the name of it. but I don't really go there for brunch. That's a hard one. To me, if I was going brunch, I'd go like 14th Street. I'd go, waterfront area, something like that. When are we getting the LT CoffeeZilla crossover? I love CoffeeZilla, but probably not anytime soon. Welcome to the party. Thoughts on the recent Avengers Doomsday trailer? Okay, I did see this one. Do you also plan to watch Spider-Man Brand New Day? I'll see it. Excited for both films. I'm more excited for Avengers. Can I tell you guys something? Listen, if you disagree with me on this one's fine. I don't know that I have any great insight into this at all. It feels to me like Marvel never recovered from Avengers Infinity War and then Avengers Endgame. Also with the death of Black Panther 2. Like those three, and then you could be maybe some other ones you could throw in there. But I'm just telling you, like, as a very I love Marvel. I'm not like a hardcore fan. I'm not a casual. I guess I'm somewhere in between. But it just felt to me like all the juice from the series got sucked out after that, and they were trying to find a way to shoehorn it back in. And so now we're going to get, crossovers between Guardians of the Galaxy. You get the X-Men part of the universe. You're going to get, Fantastic Four and all that stuff. And that seems kind of cool. I'm a little bit out on the multiverse thing. I don't know how much of that this gets into. But the other one too is I don't know much about Doctor Doom. I don't know why he's so powerful. And then we're up against it's like, oh, Thanos was the worst of the worst, and now we're back against a guy who's just like Thanos again, or not like Thanos, but has Thanos-like problems. And I'm like, what the fuck is the point of all of this? I don't know. I'm definitely gonna see that one, but I got some questions about it. McMillan versus the Contender Series prospect. What the fuck does your shirt say? This, they, them, pussy got me acting strange. Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome. I don't know if I've seen Rahiki answer for pressure. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Luke, what personal revelation do you wish you had arrived earlier in your life? Mine is that people's decisions often have more to do with them than me. That life is extremely difficult to predict. And to just kind of have a life where you want to build for things and you want to plan for things and you have to be intentional about things, but it's very, very hard to plan for 40 years, right? Like things just massively change over the course 20 years, over the course of that time horizon. And understanding that like part of life is just kind of surfing it is a thing I think people just think by force of will you can control it. Thoughts on the rights backlash over the Odyssey failing with the film making a lot of money? Oh. Any plans on seeing it soon? I do plan to seeing it. Why they were going after it? I mean, dude, they've got I'll just say this. Dude, even Nick Fuentes wasn't doing that shit. Like, Nick Fuentes is like the groiper, and even he was like, "Yeah, I liked it." Like, can y'all fucking calm your tits? Oh, it's fantasy, or these guys don't look like ancient Greeks. I'm like, yeah, neither does Matt Damon. They didn't. Helena Troy's a black woman. Helena Troy's a fictional character who was born of a fucking egg. That's not the way the Trojan War went. The Trojan War is not real. Like, I understand that I absolutely do agree that there's definitely going to be pieces of artwork where fidelity to who should be playing them really needs to be observed. I respect that actually in places, and that hasn't always been the case. And in situations where that's really at a premium, I think it should be preserved. But I saw this British professor talking about the story of the Odyssey, and one of the points that he made was that what you have to understand about like Greek literature generally, and even the Odyssey in certain respects in terms of the way in which it was told and retold and taught, was that like remixing was kind of just a part of how literature worked back then. People would just kind of play with ideas and retelling it and changes to it. And I'm not saying that they changed racial components or whatever, but I'm simply saying, like, if there's an argument to be made that like having hardcore fidelity to who played those in or who should be playing those things by virtue of background, I'm not immune to the argument that should be a thing. But it's like, oh, well, Helen of Troy's a black woman. Well, fucking Matt Damon looks like he's Scandinavian. So what are you like? Neither of them fit. Neither of them motherfuckers are Mediterranean, but they're only complaining about the one. Like, kind of gives the game away. I appreciate many of your takes, but I think nothing will ever change. Fast forward 10 or 20 years, and we will be facing the same issues, but even worse. Yes, things can definitely get worse. I recognize that. I don't have a good answer for you. But what are we going to do? Just sit here and do nothing about it? Seems like we got to say something. Did you see right-wing outlets warn about the DSA by just listing the badass shit they support? Do you think that kind of messaging could backfire? They think it's not going to work. They think what everyone is running on is like bread lines and, you know, open borders and no deportations and get rid of the police and, you know, all this shit. When like that's not how these elections are fucking being run. Not yet. I mean, if it happens, we can have that conversation, but that's not who's winning. They're fear-mongering because they're afraid of what they're facing. I live in the suburbs of Minneapolis. There have been several mass shootings in a very short time frame. I'm sorry to hear that. But to say state of emergency is far-fetched. I'll have to take your word for it. Multiverses ruin everything every time. I'm just sick of them. I didn't mind it for a while. I'm a little sick of it. Like, I like the idea of getting the X-Men involved with like the Avengers and stuff. That sounds cool to me. But like, I really hope they don't play too much with the universe thing. Been trying to break contact with a person and finally got there, but it was a bitter ending. Is it worth making it more nice or just accept how it went? Accept how it went. Assuming your reasons for breaking contact with them were legitimate, accept how it went. Luke, I lost my mom 2 years ago this month. I'm so sorry, brother. I found loss like this is never really something I'll get over or just got to live with. Enjoy your content. I always try to tell people, man, the way to think about it is such that you can never think about human people who you loved and or important in your life, but it's 225 on the bar. It's 225 under the bar. Whenever I get under that bar, whether I'm 40 or 45 or 50 or 55, it's just going to be 225 on the bar. And if I get strong enough, that 225 is going to be easy to handle. And if I don't, it's going to be a lot harder to handle. But it's never going to not be 225 unless, you know, Earth's gravity changes. It's just going to be 225. And there are just, you just have to steel yourself around it, but you cannot change it. All right. Thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Great questions today, probing ones, difficult ones. And I hope I gave at least some answers in some cases that were good enough. I appreciate you all watching. MK tomorrow with Jed. We're going to have a good time. Thank you so much. And until next time, stay frosty, bitches. Bye.